Khorshed Nyayis. I would venture to say that the Nyayis, Yasts, and Sirozahs would be different sounding. And Nyayis is properly a begging prayer, as opposed to a Sirozahs, a prayer of praise. It is a term particularly applied to 5 prayers addressed to the sun, to Mithra, to the moon, to waters, and to fire. Every layman over 8 years old is bound to recite the Nyayis. He recites it standing and girded with his Khorshed, the sacred thread. The sun Nyayis is recited 3 times a day: at the rising of the sun, Ga Havan; at noon, Ga Rapitvin; and at, well, the high point of the not noon is what they used to call 3 o'clock, regardless of the time. So the early afternoon is Ga Rapitvin, and the late afternoon, the half of the afternoon, is over Ga Uziren. The Mithra Nyayis is recited with the sun Nyayis, as Mithra follows the sun in its course. So are they referring to Mithra as Mercury or Venus? The moon Nyayis is recited 3 times a month. First, at the time when it begins to be seen. Second, when it is at the full. Third, when it is on the wane. The waters Nyayis and the fire Nyayis are recited every day when one finds oneself in the proximity of those elements. The fire Nyayis is recited with the Panom on. The first 4 Nyayis must be recited separately on the days over which the Yasts invoked preside. That is, stay on the Khorshed, Mehr, Ma, and Aban days, the 11th, the 16th, the 12th, and 10th days of the month. Because we're grateful for these sacred objects, we don't have to pray to them, but so Khorshed Nyayis 1. Hail unto the sun, the swift horse. May Ahura Mazda be rejoiced. Hail unto thee, O Ahura Mazda, in the threefold way. Hail unto thee before all other creatures. Hail unto you, O Amesha Spentas, who are, all of you, of one accord with the sun. May this prayer come unto Ahura Mazda. May it come unto the Amesha Spentas. May it come unto the Pravashas of the holy ones. May it come unto the sovereign Vayu of the long period. 2. Hail unto the sun, the swift horse. May Ahura Mazda be rejoiced. May Ingra Ma'inu be destroyed by those who do truly what is the foremost wish of God. I recite the praise of holiness. 3. I praise well thought, well spoken, and well done thoughts, words, and deeds. I embrace all good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. I reject all evil thoughts, evil words, and evil deeds. 4. I give sacrifice and prayer unto you, O Amesha Spentas, even with the fullness of my thoughts, of my words, of my deeds, and of my heart. I give unto you even my own life. I recite the praise of holiness. Ashem Bahu. Holiness is the best of all good. Well is it for it. Well is it for that holiness, which is the perfection of holinesses. 5. Hail to Ahura Mazda. Hail to the Amesha Spentas. Hail to Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures. Hail to the sun, the swift horse. Hail to the 2 eyes of Ahura Mazda. Hail to the bull. Hail to Gaia. Hail to the Pravasha of the holy Spitma Zarathustra. Hail to the whole of the holy creation that was, is, or will be. May I grow in health of body through Vahu Mano, Kshatra, and Asha, and come to that luminous space, to that highest of all things, When the world, O Spenta Ma'inu, has come to an end, Asham Bahu, holiness is the best of all good, so on. 6. We sacrifice unto the bright, undying, shining, swift horse sun. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, who is the truth speaking, a chief in assemblies, with 1,000 ears well shapen, and 10,000 eyes, high, with full knowledge, strong, sleepless, and ever awake. 7. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the Lord of all countries, whom Ahura Mazda made, the most glorious of all entities in the world unseen. So may Mithra and Ahura, the two great entities, come to us for help. We sacrifice unto the bright, the undying, the shining, swift horse sun. 8. We sacrifice unto Tisturia, whose sight is sound. We sacrifice unto Tisturia. We sacrifice unto the reins of Tisturia. We sacrifice unto Tisturia, bright and glorious. We sacrifice unto the star, Banat, made by Mazda. We sacrifice unto Tisturia, the bright and glorious star. We sacrifice unto the sovereign sky. We sacrifice unto the boundless time. We sacrifice unto the sovereign time of the long period. We sacrifice unto the beneficent, well-doing wind. We sacrifice unto the most upright Kista, made by Mazda and holy. We sacrifice unto the good law of the worshippers of Mazda. We sacrifice unto the way of content. We sacrifice unto the golden instrument. We sacrifice unto Mount Akanta, made by Mazda. We sacrifice unto all the holy entities of the world unseen. We sacrifice unto all the holy entities of the material world. By that, of course, we're meaning the light beings, the unfallen angels, as you could call them. We sacrifice unto our own soul. We sacrifice unto our own Pravasha. We sacrifice unto the good, strong, beneficent Pravashas of the holy ones. We sacrifice unto the bright, undying, shining, swift horse sun. 10. I confess myself a worshipper of Mazda, a follower of Zarathustra. Unto the bright, undying, shining, swift horse sun, be propitiation, sacrifice, prayer, propitiation, and glorification. Asham Bahu, holiness is the best of all good, and so on. We sacrifice unto the Ahurian waters, the waters of Ahura, with excellent libations, the finest libations, libations piously strained. Asham Bahu, holiness is the best of all good, and so on. Give unto that man brightness and glory, give unto him health of body, give unto him the bright, all happy, blissful abode of the holy ones. Now, all this unto stuff, precise language would be an important thing to look at, but to the end of, definitely we're being, it's intercessory prayer, you could say, because we're praying on the behalf of others that, well, aren't us, but we're including us in that list too, and invoking the authority thereof, of their goodness. But so we continue the comment on Vis Tasp Yast, and Sta Hyanan Kabada Sta Yitar is the children praisers. While you certainly want to start children with religion, and while they can learn the material, let them make their choices as they get older, but, the parende of the light chariot, what exactly that means in the word of verse 9 is to be questioned. But we have rich in food, as in plenty will reign in the house, if you'll be liberal to the priest. Don't be stingy to, that's where my question draws in. A lot of the change would have happened as the professional priest trying to make a living off of the religion, rather than just people who know more, teaching more, and that sort of thing. Ra ev Vatam Ka, not Rash Vatam Ka. belongs to verse 9, and be like the brightest offspring of thy own blood. Okay. And in verse 10, to keep of want of food from her. Hana ere va'em aewe va'inant. Va'em in Sanskrit is Yasts, perhaps. Frasha Astra and Gamaspa were brothers. And if no sacrifice had been offered in verse 12, perhaps that verse is referring to, be not bad to the priest, be not unfriendly to the priest, for he who is bad to the priest, who is unfriendly to the priest, and so on. Like Bendidad 18, 1-23. Sa'o Shantem are Shrash Yontem. We're referring to the faithful man of verse 15. The 7 priests engaged in the sacrifice. See, Zarathustra came forth with something that people could do themselves. Yes, they join in a community, but you don't need a separate priest for the food and for the drink and for the incense and for the water and for the, each thing, Sarasha Varez. The Hava et Vodatha is the okay, no, it's an 18. The next of kin marriage, which is kind of messed up. You don't marry that close to the family, but there was a king, and that king was like, you don't see anything in the book that says I can't marry my own daughter. And he was like, people, and next thing, and later on, the later editions of some of the books included mentions of this next of kin marriage. Sorry about my stand with the, you can see the light. I kind of wiggled that thing there. Thatus, Karta is the Pahlavi for, the performers of holiness. 3 and 30. Thra to Temo. People say that belongs to verse 19. And to be fully protected, and thee is what the note's next to. He kills 100 times, 100 of them. Wow, they kill 100 of his people. And as we learned in other things, the idea is that the person who, their evil outstrips their good when it comes to the judgment. It's like, well, you've had all sorts of chances in life, and if you've done more bad than good, well, then you endure torment, like the entirety of the world. So the multiplication of, 100, well, 100 times, 10,000, and that sort of thing. Whatever the number squared, right? Pa urvo vasta sa ata. Read skya apna. As in Bendidad 16:14. Pa urvo vasna sakinatha. Na. The last word. Sakin-othna. And, well, just because it's read in a different way in a different passage doesn't mean it's, the similar passage here isn't, verse 26, the deeds of lust, how it wasn't intentional for it to be that way. So I need more reason to say that. On the Drug Askan, the sons of the lie, is, the slothful ones mentioned. Oh, the men of the Drug, The slothful ones. Okay, the sons of the lie are lazy. Okay. And the dead man would be, well, he trembles at the way. So you're a lot firmer in the ones responding to things when you're, alive than when you're dead, obviously. The Kinvat Bridge is being referred to as the way that a person's upon. And then the fiends tremble at the smell of paradise off the good person. In Islamic literature, you have that particularly referencing the martyrs. The Pahlavi mentioning the way of Zarathustra, as the way, instead of just translating literally the way of the law in verse 29. And a willful murder is the Ba Adu Varsta crime, with a damsel and an old woman. So killing a woman and her mother are with them, are, the woman and the old, they join in. But there's, talk about the miscarriage. So they're joining together to try to get an abortion. Okay. So you're with a woman and she wants an abortion and you take her to another woman who can make it happen, and okay. And praising the law. The sinner, everybody should praise, uphold the law. As a horseman on the back of a good horse, when he has gone the wrong way, perceiving that he has lost his way, turns back his horse from that direction and makes him go to the right way. So thou turn back thy horse to the right way. That is to say, turn him to the way of the law of Mazda. That is to say, receive the law. And one of the things in Vedic literature that we see elsewhere, of course, too, that we see in the Persian stuff, too, is this horse metaphor stuff. And people can say, well, there's the horse of the body and senses and the emotions and the thoughts. And, but who's directing those horses, The bliss of eternal life is, of course, a heavenly reward. So everything else is exacting or responding like that. But when you've outdone yourself in terms of good deeds, then that becomes unending, as the myth goes. To us, the world here below. Yono ne daro anga Lanman din bar a dashtar in Pahlavi. So Lanman and Amit. And to follow at the end in this world here below and so on. The so on is, for verse 30, is Na'edka vanga ba'ete usta vango Buyat sa ashyas dis verethraga. I cannot make anything as these words, nor reconcile them with the Pahlavi translation. It is not fair when he wishes weal for his own person, that is to say, when he brings satisfied himself, he does not satisfy other people who wish comfort for himself, making the law of Mazda current till the time when the victorious Sos Yosh will make it current. The last three Zend words appear to be abridged from a longer passage. And the faithful man, the person to receive the law in verse 31. There's an allusion to the Barishnum purification. The unclean man washes himself with gomez first and with the water last. And as we went over the other year when we got into this, this is a reprint, and you know, the purified urine of the yeah, I'm not recommending washing with purified bull urine or anything like that either. That's just what they had. And the sinner, you know, they thought to smite the individual. And so the individual friendly to the law is on the second. You just don't condemn and warn and all that stuff. You got to encourage stuff too. And the prayer sra'ata me merez data me, you know, Yasna 33:11 is recited in the case of, you know, hear me, forgive me, okay. And the world above is later mentioned in that verse 32, but the world above is, I guess, more literal. And the Ameshaspentas, the archangels, to Vistaspa, you know, the person being given here in this case, Hath Wadka, the Pahlavi is Tizke, for the profusion of wealth. Now, just because we're mentioning Zarathustra or some other entity, like or some other individual, the importance with a lot of this stuff is that we go and, you know, refer these ideas to ourselves. And the charitable person will be as a king even in Garothman. So don't think there's not going to be space for, you know, oh, there's going to be one king. No, everybody can be a king. That's the thing in the paradise of the hereafter. Aspahe, from Aspa, no comfort. Ana Sunni Tangi, in the Pahlavi commentary here. Oh. Yeah, God's law is not what delivers you pain. It's verse 36. If thou art charitable, thy children will thrive. Havar nam azda'u, full of glory of Mazda. He will pronounce all prayers and hymns. The full formula is found in the Khorshed Nyayis. And, you know, he will first enter there, as verse 39 indicates. Bring it with the words of hymns. That kind of reminds me of that passage, you know, some of the teachings about in the Islamic world about how when a person, yes, there's how much of the hymns and how much of the scripture and stuff you memorize, but it's also how much you practice going over. And those trying to learn as they go on. So, you know, that sort of thing. And obviously the things you uphold, of course. The Khorshed Nyayis has, you know, the one formula. So the supervision and care is the sort of lordship we're talking about. You know, there's different cases with the Lord and all that sort of stuff. So we're not saying that there's a Lord, you know, other than Ahura Mazda. Of course, there is some stuff that, you know, inserts into some of these things. I'm not saying that, but in general, we're meaning a different, you know, position in the hierarchy. Satyara, it stands for 100 years, as with 100 columns. So away from far, ... Ahura Mazda takes them away in 100 years. Okay, so 51 is where we're talking about that. So the person will be uninjured by the changes of temperature. It's not like hot and cold aren't going to exist as long as we're in material existence that's such things are going to be there. The Pahlavi commentary, to start, part 8, which is 53 and onwards, mentions in paradise, or entitles itself in paradise. But we got to not let impiety prevail. And impiety will impact the earth. And the demons, 1960, are the ones removed from otherwise. No it tat pa ete ahu man o katha sis reya ayaka. The Pahlavi commentary has that to say good will happen to thee through the good will of Atar, fire. So just like this Agni of the Vedic stuff, there's the representation of the fire. And as far as we've been taught, we're supposed to, continue on here. Te Kanash Anya. West reads Ta Eka Nashanya. Aeg Harvaspin Beshitaran Min Spinak Min Oe Daman Levit Epitak Avin Yah Vunit. In the Pahlavi commentary for those destroyed for what they've done to the good creation. Yatha Yat Te Frava Akame. Frava Akama in West. Puthro Berathiat Sa Ere Mananam. Sa Ere Man'an Am in West. Bak Edra'e, translated as Hak Edra'e. Dosti, friendship. And some will say that this chapter is borrowed in an altered form from Yasts 22. But they could have been used to restore each other right. Usta Va'ete. The Vahistoiste Gatha is the 5th and last Gatha. And on the night of his departing, where will his soul abide on the night he dies, basically? Not in the good word paradise, to which he will go later, but in the thought and delightful remembrance of his good words. Thoughts, words, and deeds. Follow the sequence. And Yasts 22:20 shows the second part of Yasts 22, describing the fate of the wicked, and it should be inserted here. Well, if it's not part of that, just because you can comment from something else. Think of how weird a lot of scriptures would turn out if we were, just writing in the commentary from one part to the other and, reworking stuff. Who knows how big things could get just from doing that sort of thing. And most manuscripts do not have the phrase about the The Nyayis. We're on to the Nyayis. Most manuscripts don't have that phrase of the first part of this Khorshed Nyayis. May Ahura Mazda be rejoiced. Hail under the sun, the swift horse. Most of them don't have that, but we already know that this tradition is very, very fragmented. So in thought, word, and deed. But you is the same as fate, and it became identified with time. And of course, saying that Hashem Bahu is important, and we have the whole formula listed here. We go over more of that in the Corda Avesta. Well, I guess there's not one Corda Avesta, but Geya Marathon is the first man. The sun, may my soul arrive at the sun region, is the Pahlavi translation. And I was raised in a church. One of the things that they had is the telestial, the terrestrial and the telestial and the celestial. So you had that way of speaking, but there's reference that you could refer to a lot of this metaphorically. So in heaven, we have, it's probably the last note I should read here. 83. The world unseen, what you reach only when you're dead and good. And of pleasure, we have the way of content, versus the demon of discontent. On Mount Sa Akanta, there is a golden tube coming from the root of the earth. The water that is on the surface of the earth goes up through the hole of that tube to the heavens, and being driven by the wind spreads everywhere, and thus the dew is produced, according to the Sanskrit translation. And okay, we have this, the whole of the Khorshed Yasts is typically inserted in 91. So in verse 10, between the Hashem Bahu and the rest of verse 10, it would typically recite that whole bit. Rivers are considered as Ahura's wives. Again, that family language, there's a lot of stuff we can't take literally, and we're going to leave that for a time being.